everybody. Welcome to Busy Living Sober. Busy Living Sober. Busy Living Sober. Episode 256 with Dana Ruberti. Did I say it right? I didn't say it right.
Ruberti with the B.
Ruberti.
It's okay.
Dana Ruberti. I'm so excited because we have been talking, I think, years now via social media. We send each other messages and then we email each other. And I'm so excited because especially after what happened when you were just away on vacation, I just think you have a relatable story and that a lot of people can learn from what your life has been like. Because how long have you been sober?
6.5 years.
6.5 years.
Yeah.
And what was it like? And what is it like now? And what happened? And tell us your story.
What it was. So I'm from Connecticut. I don't know where to start, but I'm from Connecticut. I grew up here. I have 3 kids. I've been married for, like 32 years. My husband is 15 years sober. And so I've been sober 6.5 years. And I grew up with 3 brothers. My parents, they were not alcoholics. And I'm always like, where does the alcoholism fall in my family? But it's like everybody, there's always somebody that's an alcoholic in a family. So whether it was a grandmother or uncle, or I'm always asking my mom who she thinks it might be, but, and I figured I finally stopped asking myself why, like, why me? Because I was just with my brother and he could not have a beer. He could have 1 beer and he's good. So I live in Madison, Connecticut, and I have, my son is 31. He just had a baby, Reed, who is 10 weeks old, who I love. And they live near us. So I'm so lucky, just 5 minutes away. And then my daughter, Carly, is out in Seattle. And then my youngest, Cameron, just graduated college. And so, my husband, what it was like, I never drank, I was not a drinker. I just never drank. I just didn't like it. I don't know why. I wasn't around it. I had friends that would drink, you do like the keg parties on a weekend, but I was never drawn to it. And then even in my late 20s, I remember when I had my son, I had a glass of white Zinfandel. I was just like, oh, this is awful. So I just never was a big drinker. Or, drugs. I was always afraid. I was always like, oh, I don't want to try that. It's going to make me weird. I was always, not that I was a good girl. I wasn't, but I was kind of sassy, my mom said, and kind of bratty, I guess, when I was younger. And then I got married. We had Brandon, and I was just your typical mom, just doing, football, dance, brownies, all that stuff. And then we live in a town that's very, like I'm sure a lot of towns, the moms go to baseball games with cups of wine. And I never did that. But then my friend came, my youngest daughter was 2 months old and we were at my son's baseball game. My friend came and she had a big tumbler full of wine. So that's kind of just what we did. And then it just kind of eased for me. It just kind of made me feel a little bit less anxious drinking. Not that I was shy, but I guess there was a group of women in town that I always wanted to be part of, almost like when you're a little kid, like a middle schooler, you want to be in like the popular girls. And I was friends with them and I was friends with spin-off friends. And then I got to be friends, but they would just drink every night. They would have the kids running around. And so then I started doing that every night. And I was just, and I knew, so I would drive drunk, which is, terrible. And I just exposed, especially my youngest daughter. And, we just go to my friend's house and make the kids pasta and let them run around and drink our wine and, talk about people in town and talk about kids. Just nothing nice, just nothing redeemable.
So Dana, I want to ask you something because I know this isn't your husband's story, so we're not going to tell his story, but we're going to tell your story. But when he was drinking all along, because he got sober 9 years before you did.
Yeah.
I mean, were you just like, okay, he's just doing his thing, it's not a big deal, or you have a problem and we need to get you help?
Yeah, he just he was just a regular old drinker, and then I didn't know anything about alcoholism. I just really didn't. And he would drink, and he finally, you know, he has a family business, a car dealership. So finally somebody kind of did an intervention on him, his parents and stuff. And so he went to rehab for a month.
And what were you doing? What were you thinking?
I know. I remember my mother-in-law calling me. I was going out walking with my girlfriend. She's like, we need to talk. So I was like, so I found out he went to rehab, and I had, you know, 2 teenagers and my 9-year-old at home. And I remember bringing him to rehab, and he was there for a month and came out, and I kind of remember thinking like, oh my gosh, is that the end of my drinking? You know, I was just, I didn't know how. Now that I'm in AA and I'm an alcoholic, I was a really bad, I was not a good wife when he came home. I was not supportive. I still went out with my friends. I just didn't know any better. You know, I wish somebody had kind of grabbed me and said, go to Al-Anon and it'll make things better. I just didn't know about it. And maybe I didn't want to know about it.
Right. And he went on his way and started doing, like, he changed himself and embraced this 12-step thing and said, I'm going to do this, and never relapsed again.
Yeah.
And isn't that awesome?
Yeah, he went to AA, got sponsor, you know, and then he gradually saw me decline. So you know,
for him.
Yeah. And I started drinking, thinking I was hiding drinking from everybody, but you know, you think you're drinking, but you're not. I mean, you're hiding it, and everybody knew. So I was not a supportive wife because I just didn't know any better. I wish I had known better, and yeah, he's still sober.
And when you say, like, it's like you did the best you can do, but when you're not educated, which is one of the things why we do Busy Living Sober, right? It's because we want to educate everybody else that's out there. And did you go to the family program? Did they tell you there, like, maybe you should go to, no?
No, I did go to one family program at the rehab. And I just remember sitting around other wives and husbands, and I was just like, this is just awful. You know, I was just thinking about myself. I was like, this is just the worst thing. Because I was like, oh my God, my husband's an alcoholic. Like I was more concerned about what people would think and about me instead of, you know, what he was going through. So yeah, I just kept moving along drinking, and, you know, he was getting better and I was getting worse, you know? So my kids had one parent that was, I believe I was an alcoholic when I was drinking normally. So one dad was an alcoholic and mom wasn't. Then all of a sudden dad goes to rehab, comes home, and then I start going into my demise.
And did he make any ultimatums or anything, or what was it like?
You know, he never made ultimatums, I think, because he learned the way to, you know, I mean, we got in several fights about it, but it was always, you know, as the more I started drinking and blacking out, I would black out and just not remember things and get in fights with him and say nasty things to him, and, you know, drunk texting and, you know, just unmanageable, so unmanageable. And then and I never knew what unmanageable and powerless meant until I was like, I have to drink every day. I would feel hungover and I'm like, you know, by 4 or 5, I'd had to drink. I was powerless. I couldn't stop. And then my kids, you know, I embarrassed my kids. I embarrassed him at parties and, you know, work functions. And I know his parents, people were saying things to him like, Dana's just out of control. What's going on? And, you know, over the years at football games and lacrosse games, just really embarrassing. And I just didn't know, you know, how bad I was.
And it makes you feel, at least I remember when you were just talking about like blacking out and you wake up the next day and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I say? And then having a sober spouse, it must have been just so like, how do I get out of this?
It was, like the anxiety every day of just like, what did I say? Who do I offend? Or if I was out somewhere, I would think like, oh, did I offend so-and-so's daughters? You know, it was horrible in the mornings. but then I would think, oh, the drinking, it doesn't change me. It just makes me happier at night. And I would do it. And then the next day I just felt terrible. And then I was in a horrible, my daughter was in high school at the time, and it was just, as a freshman, really, that's when I really started really getting bad, just drinking like a bottle a night, a liter of wine a night, which is a lot. And that's all I drank was wine. We just started fighting. I was fighting with her, and I know I was embarrassing her. And I remember being at a lacrosse game and just being so loud. And that's when Snapchat first came in, and, kids were Snapchatting me, yelling and just being a complete crazy person on the sidelines. And, she would text, Dad, tell Mom to stop. She's so embarrassing. And, and then she would always say to my husband, Dad, you have to help Mom. She needs rehab. She would say to my husband all the time, Mom needs rehab, do something. And she didn't really, my kids never went to like Alateen or anything. And my husband, I don't know if he didn't know what to do or if he was just waiting for me because he knew if I wasn't ready, what was the point? So that was really sad to think, and I kept saying to my daughter, I'm sorry, I'm going to get, I'm not going to do this anymore. And, she would say, sure, that's what you said in the past. And I did try to get sober, maybe a year before I actually got sober, and I lasted like 5 days because I didn't have the tools. I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
And were you mortified like I was to be like, admit like, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic? I mean, I know he's one, but
right.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. I felt even sometimes now I'm just like, ooh, because I guess growing up thinking of alcoholics that we had in town, I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to be like them. And, so the shame and the stigma of alcoholism, it's so bad. That's why I love your podcast, because you're just taking that shame and stigma out of it. Like you said, presidents are alcoholics, Congress, so many people are alcoholics, just from jail to Yale. And I just, it was just a really bad time. And my husband just hung in there, and, he kept saying, you got to put a plug in the jug and you got to stop. And we're worried about you. And I would just say, I know, but then continued to do it, continued to drink.
And what was the final straw?
It was, I think, embarrassing things. A lot of it revolves around my youngest daughter because she was home. My other two were in college or out of college. Just embarrassing her so many times and trying to stop. And I don't even know. It was one Monday morning, and I just had sat on the side of my bed, and I called my friend who was in AA, and I just said, I want to stop. Can you meet me at a meeting? And she said, well, I can't meet you at a meeting, but I'll meet you after the meeting. And I went to this meeting in town, and I met some women there, which is like the connection. The women just get you through. And then, so the three of us, we all went out to breakfast afterward. And I remember it was snowing, and I cried during the whole meeting. I remember where it was a speaker meeting, and I just cried. And I felt all swollen, like that feeling of hangover where your eyes are swollen and your body feels terrible and your mind feels terrible. And I just was crying at breakfast. And I remember going into my pocketbook and taking out an airport bottle of Chardonnay, an empty one. I was like, wow, look what I just found, because, I always had wine, whether at home or in my pocketbook. And so there I started meeting women. I started going into meetings around town, AA meetings. I never went to rehab. I got connected with one of my friends who's still a great friend who lives in Florida. She was my first sponsor. And it was hard, and it was funny because the first year, my husband and I, when I was 6 months, he started going off the rails because he wasn't doing the proper work about having, okay, now I'm sober. Now I'm going out all the time with sober friends. And, my daughter was like, Mom, you're going out more now than you ever did, to meetings and just sober things. And he wasn't. So I guess he was starting to feel neglected. And it was, I remember at 6 months, it was bad. He was sick. Like he said, he didn't know how to deal with me being sober and, all that entailed. But then he started doing the work again. He had stopped doing the work. He'd stopped going to meetings. And so he started going to meetings, started sponsoring people again, and started doing that whole thing. So, which was great because that got him, back into doing everything.
It's very interesting because I've heard so many marriages, unfortunately, that they fall apart because one spouse is like, all right, I'm sober, I'm doing the meeting thing. And the other one is like, now what do I do? And sober or not so. I mean, it's just such a different, and the fact that you guys managed is amazing.
It is. And people would be like, oh, you're so lucky your husband's sober. And at first I was like, no, I'm not lucky. I don't like it. I don't like him being at meetings. I don't want to talk to him about it. And, I wanted to stay separate from his, but I'm better with that now. It took me a while, but yeah, it's
because it's such an individual thing, but then it's such a family thing, right? Because it affects everybody.
Mm-hmm. It's truly family. And I wish I just had more information about how it affected everybody.
You thought back, I love that you got invested with a bunch of women and you knew what it was and you weren't that scared to call this friend. I'm sure you were kind of scared, right? Because it is a little scary to do that, right? And say, oh my gosh, the gig's up, I need help.
Yeah. Yeah, it was scary. And it was just weird how, it was weird how like that morning I just decided I'm done drinking. And then meeting other women and going to meetings was very scary. Walking in because I knew nothing about it and everything they did before the meeting and raising your hand. And it was just terrifying. I remember a friend that I just met, and it was because I got sober at the end of January and it was February. And I was sober 2 weeks, and my girl, we were supposed to have a meeting at a friend's house on a Sunday morning. Or no, the meeting was canceled because there's a blizzard or bad snowstorm. And my one girlfriend said, nope, we're still doing a meeting, because I was only 2 weeks sober. So we had a meeting at her house with 2 other women. And I remember her husband going out and getting us fruit. And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, there's a major snowstorm, but you still cared enough to have a meeting at your house for me. That was just amazing.
Isn't it amazing what we will do for each other?
Yeah. Yeah. And she's one of my best friends today. She just, I think women, once if you get connected right at the get-go, it really helps. It just, it helps because it is a scary thing. You don't understand anything.
No, it's a total game changer. And with your husband not pushing you, which I think was also on his part, a really good thing. And you've said like, oh, I wish I could have gone, but it's like exactly the way that God wanted it to go,
Right. Like if it hadn't, maybe he would have pushed me to rehab and I would have gone and come out and, said, forget it.
Right. You have no idea. Like it happened like divinely. We always want to go back and say, well, I wish it was going to be this way, but then it happens that way. And you could get to that place where you're like, I don't regret my past. I don't want to shut the door on me. And it happened the exact way God wanted it to happen.
Right. Like that saying, regretting your past. Because it's what made today, the way I am today. It's, but there's a lot, it was a tough time, but I did it. I kept going to meetings and I kept talking and, I just kept doing it. I don't know what kept me going. I definitely, I believe God. I had never had a problem believing God. I think that's what kept me going. Sometimes I would drive after work, like that bewitching hour, like Friday at 5. And I'd be like, oh God, I want to go to the package store and buy wine. Then all of a sudden I would end up home, so it was like, I believe that was God just guiding me to go home and just deal with it.
Well, and I'm sure your youngest, because she was home,
Yes.
And I know how girls are, right? They like to tell us what to do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And what not to do and how weird we are.
And she probably kept her eye on you, didn't she?
She did. Yeah. And I think she was just so mad, I think she was still so mad at me. I expected to be like, oh my God, embraced by her. Like, you're sober. Like, it took her quite a long time to be like, congratulations. Because, I did a lot of damage to her. I embarrassed, it was a hard time for her. So it took quite a while for her to say, Mom, I'm so proud of you.
And it's like, sometimes didn't you, at least for me, I wanted a tiara. I wanted a red velvet carpet that came and said, look at how good mom's been. She's like, not drinking. Like, rules.
Yes.
Where's my party or my parade?
Hey, it's a year. I want a vacation. I'm a year sober. Yeah, it was just, I expected everyone just to like call, say, oh my God, you're amazing.
It's still hard. Now, how was it for you during the pandemic?
It was totally fine because I work at a pediatrician's office, so I never stopped working. So it did, and my husband never stopped working. So it didn't really, the meetings, I did a lot of Zoom meetings. But I was fine. I just stayed connecting with girlfriends and, I miss the in-person meetings, but because I went to work every day, just like normal, I really think that saved me.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But that could have been, that could have been.
And are you're back with meetings in person now in Connecticut?
Yeah,
correct?
most of them, there's still a few women's meetings they're going to go back like the end of summer. So that's nice. Yeah.
So what was it like? Because you just went on a vacation.
Yes.
One of your favorite spots. What was that like? Tell us.
Yes. So I went to Sea Island, Georgia, and it was a business / vacation, business / fun vacation. It was my husband it was a business trip. And we stayed at this beautiful resort, the Cloisters. And it was just, he would go to his business meetings and then would go golfing. So I was happy just to go to the beach every day and the pool, and it's beautiful there. Just walk and, I even looked up meetings just to see if there were meetings around, but they were too far away. Just like people watching, and I loved it. And so I went to the beach every single day, and all I ever drank, and I've been drinking since I was sober 6.5 years, they're seltzers and cranberry. It's all I ever drank. I'm not a mocktail drinker, but and every day at the beach, I would drink like 4 or 5 of them because it was 90 degrees and hot. And so and I do remember watching moms with kids holding their plastic glasses of wine throughout the week. And I remember thinking to myself, gosh, feeling a little envious of them, because that's what I used to do. And I was just like, why can't I do that anymore? So, but I know how to deal with that. So then second to last, when we were just about to go home the day before, the beach waiter came over, this cute college kid. And it was like 10:30 in the morning. And I just said, oh, can I just have a seltzer and cranberry? And he's like, well, we just have peach seltzer. So I was like, well, that's fine. But then I thought to myself, oh, that's weird. Why wouldn't they have seltzer? I thought maybe the bar isn't open for the seltzer gun. So he brought me this big plastic cup of peach seltzer, and I had oranges in it. And I was so thirsty, and I started drinking it, and I kept drinking it. And I was like, gosh, this is so peachy. It was just I'm not a peachy person. If I was going to relapse, it would be Chardonnay. I would not choose seltzer. And then I just kept drinking it, and I drank the whole thing. And then I was even chewing my oranges. And then all of a sudden I just felt like it just hit me like, oh my God, this is alcohol. This is a seltzer, like a White Claw, like our kids drank, like that type of seltzer. And I just knew it. And all of a sudden it just kind of hit my body. And women in shame, I was too ashamed or too scared to go find the waiter and say, excuse me, was there alcohol in that? I felt stupid, but I felt it in my body, and I knew I had just drank. And my first thing was I sat there and I was like, well, I could just not tell anybody and just not worry about it. But I knew that would mess with my mind. And I just started feeling yucky, like I had a stomach ache. This is all just in a matter of minutes. And then I just panicked, because my biggest fear was that it was kind of opening like Pandora's box of, oh my God, I started the obsession. And that physical obsession is what I just couldn't stand that. And I just remember being so scared and panicked, and I was like, what do I do? So I was like, I'm gonna go call my sponsor. But before I even thought that, I got up from the beach chair, and I could tell I was not drunk, not really buzzed, but just kind of, I felt slurry, but I almost felt like I was walking quickstand, that kind of weird feeling. It wasn't a nice feeling at all. It was gross. And I just remember, and I said out loud, I said, Reed, who was my new grandson. And I just started bawling, because I was like, oh my gosh. thinking about what I could lose and what I would lose if I were to drink. And it was him, the thing I love most, or close to most, the thing I love the best, this amazing little boy. And I was like, my kids would never let me watch him if I was drunk. And so that I just went up, found a spot in the hotel outside, bawling, and I called. It was in the morning, so it was funny. My sponsor answered. It was like a Monday morning, and I told her what happened, and she was great. She said, "It's happened to me. Did you do it intentionally?" I said, "No." And she said, "Did you order another one?" I said, "No." She goes, "Well, it's up to you. You could either order another one or you're done. I mean, you're not. It was a mistake." So she talked me off the ledge, and then I even went. I put my finger down my throat. I was trying to throw up to get it out of me. Like my sister-in-law said, it's like you recoiled from a hot flame. Just my body, it's like luckily I retrained myself. My body knew that this was bad and just to try to get rid of it. And then I called my friend Winter, who was the one that I had the meet at her house in the snow. And she never picks up either. She's a chef. She was delivering food, and it was early in the morning, at like 10:30, 11, she picked up, and I was hysterical. And she was like, "What happened?" And I told her, and she was great. She's like, "You don't have to reset your date." She's 30 years. And she just told me, it was a mistake, and go do something, do something about it. So I went and I talked to them, and then I felt a little bit better. But I was still so kind of freaked out about it that I went I walked 4 miles on the beach. And I just talked to God the entire time. And I just said, I don't even know what I said, but I just know I talked to God, and I just was just so afraid of just so afraid like this is going to start all over again. I was just so afraid of my body saying, "Okay, you had one drink this morning. Now it's time. I need another." Because that's how it used to be. You have one drink and then the obsession starts.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
when you just talked about your grandson, I was like, oh my
I
God.
know.
I was thinking at the beginning, I'm like, he's never going to see his grandmother drink. He's so
right.
lucky that these sober grandparents. I mean, how amazing is that?
It is to have, right? Like we can take him skiing, we can do all sorts of things, and his parents won't be like, "Oh gosh."
Right. And there's so many people, I think, that when that happens, they just fall down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And can't get up. So you did the best thing you could do. You told on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's our secrets are what make us sick.
Right. And that's what I thought of when I thought, like, I don't have to tell anybody. It was a mistake. I didn't order a drink. I did not want to drink. But I knew that, I knew that was wrong, and I knew it would just mess with my mind. Yeah. So I took a long 4-mile walk. I got all sorts of blisters on my feet because the sand was so hard and hot. And then I went and I just kind of went and sat down on the beach again, and just kind of, I just felt odd. I just was like, oh, just to be, because I've never really been careful about, if I order a seltzer and cranberry, I just assume that's what I'm getting. Right. And then I just went, I had lunch, I got a chocolate milkshake. And then, I went back to our hotel, and I sat on the terrace and just thought about it and prayed. And just, my husband got back from golf, and I told him, he was like, well, he said the same thing my sponsor said. So it was really just, it was God's grace just kept me from that. How they say, like, the first drink will get you if you're not spiritually fit. Yeah. And I feel like, thank God I was spiritually fit. Cause right. You said, I mean, nobody was around. Nobody knows me there. My husband was gone all day. It would be so easy to just say, oh, I already had one. What's a few more? And then that would start the whole hamster wheel going and going. And, I didn't want that dread and the shame of that horrible, yucky feeling of the day after. And my little Reed, that was, and my daughters and my kids, it was just everything. It's just because our life becomes so rich, right? At least for me, I thought when I get sober, I'm going to be so bored. There's nothing going on. Right. It's me. I'm going to have nothing to do. And now, is there enough hours in the day? Right. There's always stuff to do. And right. Look at all your activities you're doing. There's just so much, when I was drinking, I remember a nurse at the office I worked for, she would go on trips every weekend with her kids as a chaperone, a skiing trip. And I remember thinking like, God, I would love to do that, but I have to drink at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I missed out on, and just kind of never being present, always thinking like, okay, well, I'll, like talking to, say, my daughter, well, I have to run out to the package, just not being present, and just having the unmanageability of wine just took over my life. Like they say, it's your best friend, and it was my best friend.
Oh, for sure. And if you were to give advice to somebody who's out there and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do if I quit. I'm going to be so bored and I don't have anything else to do. What would you say to them?
I totally understand, because that's probably how I was, because it was just so new. And I just, and my friend would always say, just believe, just know that I believe, so you need to believe. And I would understand. But you just, if you want it bad enough, you'll do it. And thank God for me, I just prayed every day. I really believed, in the morning, just ask God, please keep me sober and remove the obsession from me. And for me, going to AA 12-step meetings, that's how I got sober. That's how I met these women. And, we're always going out, girls trips. I just was down in Florida for my girlfriend's wedding shower, and we had a 5-day sleepover at my girlfriend's house, and we were all sober. We had dinners at night, and our other friend flew down from North Carolina, and we're all sober in the pool, going to dinner, shopping, everything. And I never would have wanted to do that if I was drinking. I'd be like, oh, no, I'll stay behind because I want to drink. And, my kids respect me, and it's a different, and I just feel better about myself. I think that's what it is. I don't feel like a creep and like a loser mom, especially moms, because we have such shame about, the things that we do, I think, especially with our kids. And it's that disease just wants you to drink. It wants you to want to drink. And I think, like they say, one day at a time, you just have to keep at it one day at a time. I listen to podcasts galore. That helped me. There's so many more now in the last few years, but that really, just like your podcast, I found, and I just loved it, because it made me realize like, this is good. It's okay.
Yeah.
You made it normal. Like, it's okay. It's not such an odd thing. And you do have fun. You meet amazing people, and you don't have to be a slave to your bottle.
And don't you find it that you become like your authentic self? Like you always, at least for me, I wanted to be what you wanted me to be, and what you wanted me to be, and what you wanted me to be. And I was never what I wanted to be. Right.
Like with that group of women, I was like, I didn't really have fun sitting there drinking wine with them every night, but I thought, oh, this is what they're doing, so I'm going to do it. And now I can just say no. Like they say, no means no. Like last weekend, I was down in Pennsylvania. My sister-in-law wanted me to go to some boot camp with her in the morning. And I just said, she's like, come on, why don't you want to? And she's in the program. She's awesome. She's like, why don't you want to go with me? Just come on. And I just said, she was like, why? I said, because I don't want to. And normally I would just have to come up with, reasons. And now it's just, no, I'm okay.
It's not people pleasing. And
yeah,
I just had a girls' weekend here, and we talked a lot about that, how being our authentic selves is so important today, and not saying yes because everybody else wants us to, but saying yes because we really want to do it.
Right. It is important. And it just, I think it's a good role model too. If, women have kids, and, you just become a more authentic person, like you said. And it's just, you don't have to lie.
No, it's like somebody said, wouldn't you love going to Mount Kilimanjaro and climbing it? And I'm like, no, thank you.
I know. It's the last thing I'd want to do.
Exactly. You want to
I'll go, but
I don't want
I'll go, but I'll stay in the hotel and just go do fun things.
Yeah. Life's so much more fun when you get to be you instead of wanting to be somebody else.
It is. It's not, sometimes I still get a little anxious going out because I drinking, of course, would make you feel a little bit better. But once I'm out, I'm fine. You know, it's my own mind thinking like, but yeah, it's just, you can be yourself. And then when you're around, like, you notice things, like I know in your podcast, you say you notice the beach, the sand, this, you know, the sky. And it's just different. It's, you know, I don't repeat myself 10 times when I'm out with people. And I just, it feels good. When I leave a function or a group of people, it feels good that I'm walking away completely sober.
Yeah, and you get to be Dana.
Right.
You know, you get to be Dana, and you don't have to be, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here. It's very interesting. I went to a party. I went to a dinner thing last night, and I had a friend with me, and she's like, nobody bothered you about the fact that you don't drink. And I said, nope, because I tell everybody, I'm like, yeah, I don't drink anymore. Just so you know, don't offer me a cocktail because there aren't enough here.
Right. It's not enough. Right. Which is amazing, you know, and I wish we all could do that. That's why I love your podcast and others, that it's just okay. And that's how I was the first couple of years of being sober. I would post on Facebook, and it was just, you know, oh, my first anniversary. And, you know, and I always said to my kids, I'm like, I'm not embarrassed. Tell anybody, tell your friends, tell your teachers, you know, it was okay.
Well, I think that if we keep talking about it, the stigma might go away, which is the important thing, I believe, don't you?
I think it is, because I think, especially for women, I think it's, you know, I think there's a lot of women that I know that would just benefit from coming into like 12 steps, but you feel ashamed. You feel like, you know, just kind of less than. And so you just drink it away. And the next day you feel yucky, and then it just goes again. It's like Groundhog Day.
So let's finish this up with you telling, all right, there's a young you listening to this, and they're like, what do I know I have a problem. I know I do, but what do I do?
I know, what do I do? You just call a woman. You know, I think that's to call a woman in the program or a program. And then I think, because like you said, we all take care of each other. And then from there, they will take care of you. They will teach you where to go, what to do. And it'll make you appreciate sobriety. Like I didn't appreciate a sobriety except until I was on the beach when I drank that. And then when I thought I lost it, that's when I really appreciated it and felt like, wow. You know, a lot of people don't make it.
No.
You know, like we were talking about relapse, and, you know, people, a lot of years going out and just saying, forget it, I'm done.
Yeah.
So we're the lucky ones. They say we're the lucky ones. And now I understand it. Now I know what that means.
Yeah. It's such a gift, and it's fleeting. And if we get one day, it just makes us, it's like one day adds to another day, adds to another day.
Right.
Thank you, Dana, for coming on. And for the people that are out there, I had such technical difficulties.
It was fine.
Running around like crazy, and Dana has been amazing.
I love it. I love you, and I love your podcast. And
I love you. And the next time you're coming down, we are meeting. Okay.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yep. I love it.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Have a great afternoon.
You too. And everybody that's out there, remember to keep getting busy, and reach out to me, by the way, reach out to me at elizabeth@elizabethchance.com or busy@busylivingsober.com. And until next time, keep getting busy, living
sober.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.